All right. So, hello everybody. Welcome to HBCU Game Day Live. This is a special Thursday night edition to you. Happy New Year, first of all. The first time we're doing this on as we get prepared for. Oh man, it seems like we just finished the 2024 season, but already the 2025 season's here. Transfer portal, NIL, all that stuff. So here we are. So I'm joined by two experts in their uh, in their respective fields of HBCU sports. I've got to my left, we've got Kris Ferguson, our D2 CIAA insider, international man of mystery. And to my right, we've got the one and only Carl Luke Williams of the Black College Sports page, and so many other things as well. How are you gentlemen doing today on the second day of 2024?
Craziness, but I'm good.
So it's wonderful in a lot of ways. Had my second great grandchild on
Congratulations.
On Monday. Added to my 18 grandchildren. So other than that, the news is such as it is with the football playoffs going on, the tragedy in New Orleans, New Year's. So it's a lot happening, but thankful to be here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, yeah, as you say, thoughts and prayers for everybody impacted by what happened in New Orleans on the wee hours of January 1st. Hate to see that type of stuff at all. So thoughts and prayers go out to everybody that's been impacted directly or indirectly by that. Kind of puts things in perspective. A lot of things that we talk about that seem like they could be life or death, and it's clearly not that. But as such, we're here. We got to talk about it. Football, HBCU football, college football is a year-round endeavor as it is with the rest of the world. And we're going to have a lot to talk about, not only in the Division I ranks, but the Division II ranks as well. So, yeah, let's get started. So, we started this, we all talked a couple of weeks ago. It seems like, you think about things that we thought we knew then versus what we know now. And it turns out we knew nothing and everything, right? Kris, I know we did the show Everybody Wants a D2 Coach. And I guess we were halfway right. You look at you did get Sam Shades, you did get Tremaine Jackson. Then we also got some other stuff that we did that the guys that were definitely not D2 coaches. So, but let's talk about where we are right now. The first opening of the year. One of the first openings, that and Lane College were about the same time. We had Shaw University. We had Elizabeth City State University. They relieved their coach of, they did not renew his contract. And so they were looking for new blood, and I guess they found it. They didn't really have to look very far, because not too long after that, Shaw let go of Adrian Jones, and the first hire of the year kind of goes that way. Kris, your thoughts on the short-lived stint of Adrian Jones no longer being in the CIAA?
I don't know. There's a side of me that feels like Shaw bailed out ECSU because you get Coach Jones and all that got handled pretty quickly, and you would think that you don't renew somebody's contract, you would kind of know where you want to go at that point. And then Shaw happened, and then it all fell together. So it's just like, wow, like it just really feels like ECSU got bailed out, because I don't think that it made sense to let go of Marcus Hilliard, who was an alum who had been getting closer and closer to sort of 500, just not just based on the record itself, but also the results. Like, there are numerous games where they were like within single digits of getting over that hump, and for somebody to sort of pour themselves into that, it's hard to let go of an alum. And the way that they did that with him, it was like, where do you go next? Who's going to really take this job? And so For Coach Jones to go there, at least you know that Coach Jones does have a track record with multiple winning seasons, and maybe he finds things a little easier at ECSU now being at a state school.
Yeah, really great points there. Luke, I'll ask you. Adrian Jones at Shaw for, I believe, 8 seasons, 9 years. We know we had the COVID thing. He had 3 winning records, I believe, and 3-6-4 records. He gets let go by Shaw, and there was some people were shocked by it. Some of us kind of said, hey, maybe it's time. Either way it goes, he's out at Shaw, and Kris is saying they kind of bailed out Shaw. What are your thoughts with this move for Adrian Jones? We know Shaw has had some success previously. It's now getting further and further in the rearview mirror, as has ECSU. What do you think about this move for Coach Jones and for the two programs?
Well, black college football is full of retreads, both on the coaching level, sometimes on the playing level, but on the coaching and the AD level, it's not surprising to see an HBCU coach move from one program to another. Usually, if you lose a head coaching job, you have to take some kind of coordinator job or something like that. So it's kind of unusual to see Shaw pick up somebody from the conference who's had some success, but not great success, obviously, when you let go from an institution in the conference. But it probably had to do, I would think it had to do with relationships, that somehow the athletic director at Elizabeth City had some kind of contact with Adrian Jones that would necessitate thinking that Adrian Jones could come in and do something that Marcus Hilliard didn't do in terms of getting Elizabeth City back to the point where it's a factor and a contender in what used to be the CIAA North. Now, of course, since they've gone away from the divisional thing, no more North and South, they could get them back in the top half, at least, of the CIAA, which I think they have probably dropped out of the top half since their previous coach. And what's his name? His name escapes me. I tried to look it up before you asked me the question. No, I'm thinking about the coach that took them to the championship, took them to several championships at Elizabeth City.
That's Tiller.
I'm sorry, what's his name?
Waverly Tiller.
Tiller. I'm sorry, I thought you said Taylor. Right. Waverly Tiller, exactly. Well, Waverly Tiller had them competing for championships and, being a real challenger. They have not been a challenger since Waverly Tiller left, which was kind of controversial when he left because people thought that he actually had them competing with the best in the North and the best in the CIAA. So I thought it was a little surprising that he would be picked up by Elizabeth City after being let go by Shaw. So, that was the biggest thing for me, just that surprise. I don't know when's the last time that happened in the CIAA, that somebody left a program as a head coach and became the head coach of another program. We've seen that from the SIAC. We've seen Maurice Flowers, for example, leave Fort Valley State and go to Johnson C. Smith. And I think there are a couple of other examples, cross conferences. And we've seen that, of course, on the Division I level, people will leave Division II and become a head coach at an FCS HBCU. But in the same conference, I'm not sure, even though, as we know, for example, on the HBCU level, Fred McNair was supposed to be the leading guy when he was let go at Alcorn State, going over to Texas Southern, and that whole debacle that happened over there. But we'd have to do some research to find out the last time that a coach was let go in the CIAA and then hired in the CIAA. So I was a little surprised, but not from the standpoint, I would have to say it's probably a slight upgrade, even though I thought Marcus Hilliard had them on a upward trajectory before this season. I think this was his third season there. I thought he was really, and when he took the job, I think, as a matter of fact, I think Kay Ferg and I were at the CIAA media day a couple of years ago, and he was very positive and very optimistic about getting Elizabeth City back to where it had been under Waverly Tiller. And after a couple of years, and it's one of your guys there is the AD, Stephen J. Gaither. So you maybe can tell us what was involved with Mr. What's your boy's name? That's the that used to be at your alma mater.
Mr. DeVoe. So actually, as we kind of put this into perspective, so actually, both of the ADs at Elizabeth City State, when we talk about Mr. DeVos, and then over at Shaw, George Knox. Both of those guys actually worked at WSSU.
That's right.
So and both of them really kind of held the ship together back in 28 for basically a year where there was not an athletic director before Etienne Thomas was eventually hired by now former Chancellor William, our former Chancellor. So there's a lot of tie-ins, and I can. And not to bring those guys that wear red and white up. I didn't do this, Kris. Let the record be shown. There also is a connection. There is a coach that got fired in the CIAA that is now a head coach
at Winston-Salem State. At Winston-Salem State.
Yeah. Yes. Adrian Jones' predecessor was Robert Massey.
Yes.
So there's that. There is life after death in the CIAA. So, hey, sometimes you move up in the world, So there we go. It's going to be interesting. So now Adrian Jones is there. We'll see what happens. And then also we have Shaw, who had a hire. And unfortunately, the man that they chose, Coach Gregory Ruffin, is not going to. Found out less than a week later that he's not going to be able to fulfill his duties and take the job due to health reasons. It's very serious. Thoughts and prayers go out to him. But yeah. But we'll talk about that. What were your thoughts on Shaw picking Greg Ruffin? I don't know that I saw that one coming. Did either of you guys see that one coming?
I didn't know who he was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's a retread.
That's how far back that was. I didn't know who he was.
Yeah. He was the man that restarted the Shaw program in 2002, and particularly I knew it because at the time I was doing producing games for NBC Network out of Atlanta, and we did the Willie Gary Classic, which was Edward Waters versus Shaw. Both programs had reinstituted football. And they actually played at the Jacksonville Jaguar Stadium, 75,000 seat stadium that we had about 2,500 people at the game. And the funny thing is, Greg Ruffin was the coach at Shaw then, and they played Edward Waters. We brought Jesse Jackson in. We blew the budget out because it was the Willie Gary Classic, and Willie Gary owned the network NBC. So we had to blow out the budget game where we usually did games for around $50,000. We spent about $75,000. We brought in Jesse Jackson. We brought in a lot of people. But Greg Ruffin was the coach then, and Shaw was reinstituting football. Willie Gary was a very, very important part of that at the time because a very well-heeled attorney out of Florida that attended. It's a whole story if you've heard the Willie Gary
movie
story. Yeah. So it was Greg Ruffin was there, and then he left, but then he also restarted the program at Payne when Payne was reinstituting football. So K-Ferd, he is one of those 30-year veterans, like a Chennis Berry, who's been at numerous schools. So it was kind of a surprise because I think his last coaching job, and Steve mentioned this to me earlier, that we went to see him when he was the first coach to face Coach Prime at Jackson State. When he began his tenure at Jackson State, they played down in Jackson, Mississippi, and Steve and I went down to that first game. That was the notorious somebody stole my stuff during the game. When we came in for the post-game press conference, Dion said, somebody stole my stuff. That ended up being a whole story. But anyway, Greg Ruffin was the coach at Edward Waters when that happened. So he's been around for a while. I think that the stories that I read said 30-year veteran. So he's one of the guys who has been at a number of schools and had been down at Alabama State with Connell Maynor. I think they said the running backs coach, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been around. It was kind of a surprise to bring somebody back a second time, but that's not unheard of. That's, you know, we talked about how rare it is to go from one conference school to another, and it's maybe as equally rare to see a guy have two shots at one institution. So, but like you said, Steve, prayers to him. We don't know the exact nature of his health injuries, but obviously for him not to take the head coaching job, it may have just been the pressure of being a head coach that he didn't want to put himself back in a situation for whatever the health situation may be. But we'll see.
Yeah, you know, I gotta be honest, guys. You know, and you know, I didn't care really. I wasn't excited about either hire. I'm just gonna be real. You know, again, and we had Coach Jones on the program, great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. I just felt like, I don't know. I just felt like maybe, you know, I would like for the I feel like the CIAA, I feel like both times, I just feel like some new blood, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be a former NFL player. It doesn't have to be, you know.
Oh, it does. Oh, it doesn't. I thought that was required these days.
It doesn't have to be red. It doesn't have to be Red Eve or something, you know. It can, you know, but give somebody new a chance. You know, I just felt like, you know, that could be it. But, you know, hey, you know, obviously, you know, folks, you know, being a head coach is prestigious. You're the CEO of your program. You know, you work your way up, and you know, it's always interesting what guys do after they leave. You know, we talked about Fred McNair. You know, this time last year, you know, it was still wondering maybe he would be the Texas Southern coach, and he wasn't. He spent this year over at Southern University, and so we'll see what happens. And so we'll see what happens with him going forward. But yeah, I just kind of felt like some new blood. You know what I mean? There's so many good, young, talented coaches already in the CIAA. Why not give one of those guys a chance? However, you know, I did have some conversations with some folks who talked with both of these jobs, and you know, there are some concerns here. I think, you know, when you're looking at the CIAA as it is in 20, you know, maybe in 2011, 2012, you know, both of these jobs probably are a lot more desirable than they are right now. But these are probably two of the least desirable jobs in the CIAA outside of Lincoln and Bluefield State. At this point, you know, there's some internal issues, some things that they don't have that, you know, a lot of our other programs, you know, they may not be knocking it out of the park, but they have. So, you know, in terms of support staff and things like that. So, you know, again, everybody's trying to get their program better. So we shall see. You know, again, Shaw still has that opening, and so we'll see. They spun the block on their selection. They're gonna have to spin the block probably on some of those guys. Like, hey, you know what? You're really who we wanted anyway, but blah 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 blah. So we'll see how that goes. But we are getting in now to January. You know, again, it's not uncommon for some HBCU jobs to be out there for a long time, but you know, you like to have it done because, hey, right now it looks like Alvin Parker's going to be back in the league. Maurice Flowers going to be back in the league. And, you know, it's not going to get any easier. So that's over in the CIAA. And I know we don't have long with Kris. I guess we'll kind of use this to transition. You know, there was a hiring this week, a couple hirings this week in the Division I level. Sam Shade goes to Miles College. I'm sorry, he leaves Miles College, headed over to Alabama A&M. And yeah, your thoughts on that move, Kris, and how desirable of a job is Miles right now, given you know, again, the previous coach left to take over Tuskegee. Now he's left to take over a Division I FCS program. Do you think is Miles College, out of what's left at the Division II level? We talk about Central State, Fort Valley State. You know, is it the most desirable job, or maybe Shaw? I don't know. What are your thoughts on Miles College and where they go from here?
Well, Miles has had a lot of success. I mean, that's a that's a that's a job that is probably like a top job in the SIEC between them and Fort Valley. But Miles is now at a point where they just off the name alone, if you know what they've been able to do over time, like that's a job that can be an upgrade, a real upgrade. Like not just I'm the head coach now upgrade, but like you actually can step up into that role and you are expected to win the conference championship. Like nobody's expecting you to contend for the conference championship at Elizabeth City right now or Shaw right now. And so that's again that's why the Marcus Hilliard thing just really just question mark, and really Adrian Jones leaving Shaw was a question mark to me. But now you kind of see whether it's like the way Miles is set up and the SIC is the way that like Valdosta was set up with Tremaine Jackson leaving. Like somebody's going to come into that job and you're expected to win, and you're not expected to wait very long to win. So, so to me, it's a great job, in my opinion. Same thing with Fort Valley. That's a good job. Like if you're at a state school in Georgia, like there are some advantages that you can use to use with the way that their system is set up there. So Fort Valley is another one that I look to see somebody who can really keep things going get hired there too. So it's good for Coach Shade, to get that upgrade, and Miles is now out there, but that's what happens when you're successful in Division Two. Not every coach is going to stay for 10 years even. So if you're successful,
Right, right. And I know Kris, you said 8. Do you have enough time to talk about Virginia Union?
yeah,
Okay, let's talk about him. You talk about that. We got Dr. Alvin Parker, Virginia Union, the reigning CIAA champions that made it to the NCAA semifinals, correct?
yep.
Quarter,
Well,
Semifinal,
quarterfinals. Yeah.
quarterfinals. Um, so yeah, obviously he's been there. They've never had a losing record. 6-4, I believe, is their worst record under him. The last 2 years, last 3 years, they've been in the playoffs this year. They broke through and won. But right now, you heard his name for some of these FCS jobs. You heard potentially Delaware State. You even heard maybe Alabama A&M. He doesn't get either of those jobs, and then the only D1 job left is Mississippi Valley, which probably below maybe every school that's left on the list in terms of desirability. But while we were it seemed like he was in the running for these jobs, a lot of his guys hit that transfer portal, and they weren't just getting some offers from Sisters of the Poor, or they got some FBS offers. Some guys, William Davis and Reginald Vick Jr. What are your thoughts, Kris, on where Virginia Union goes from here? Do you think they get some of those guys back in the portal now that it looks like Dr. Parker will be back? I mean, what are your thoughts on just kind of where the state of Union heading into 2025?
Well,
Okay, I think the Wi-Fi. I think the
I
Wi-Fi.
feel like I. Uh-oh.
You good?
Okay.
You're good, Kris.
Okay, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have bad Wi-Fi. But I feel like what I learned from last year's transfer portal moving around is that yeah, you have guys who are out here getting big offers. Like when you look at the list of who's left VUU and gotten offers elsewhere, they're going to BCS schools, like Western Michigan or Central Florida. These aren't just any old offer. But the problem is they got to perform at that high level, or else, they may not make it past the spring. So I'm really curious to see how all that shakes out. I mean, if you think about Virginia State and their rival, um, um, yeah, I don't know if this was really the case, but like Kemon Pope, who was he's the hard hitting safety, left and went to UNC Pembroke, and then came back to Virginia State. So it's not unheard of to hear folks transfer out and come back. And so I'm really curious to see now, with those jobs being filled, can maybe VUU keep some of those folks? And I think, we saw that Jaden Early, who decided he wanted to transfer and decided that he was going to stay at VUU, and do some of those other guys decide to do that? Because if so, they'd have a pretty solid team. Jada Byers is done. His eligibility is exhausted, but the cupboard's not bare, especially if they're able to retain some of those guys. If they kind of see, get out there and see that maybe the grass isn't greener, that they return to VUU and keep things going. So I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see how all this shakes out. But it does hurt when you don't know if your head coach is saying or not, and you see those other jobs fill up, and like Delaware State to me wasn't like I get the salary increase, but is it really a place that you're going to jump in and win right away? Alabama A&M, Carter Minner didn't exactly do a terrible job there, but you kind of jumping into that role, and it really is that a fit for Coach Parker? I don't know. I'm not so sure that was the right fit either. So to me, I think he stays now and keeps things going and retool and kind of see what happens in 2025 season.
Yeah. You said a lot there, Kris. I know we'll have to let you go, but I definitely appreciate you for coming on, and appreciate you. And we'll be tapping your shoulder a few times as things go on, as we get some more of these hires in. So we appreciate you.
Well, let me say one thing really quickly.
I'm sorry. Don't let me start giving you the Stevie Wonder playing the music treatment, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Or Apollo, right? Wrap it up. But let me just say something about Shaw. I think they have an opportunity to figure out, maybe a coach that might be a better fit overall. I did see somebody had dropped like Marcus McElveen, who's at Winston-Salem State as defense coordinator. He's an alum. Certainly like David Bowser, who's at John C. Smith, who, knows what's going on in Raleigh. Wouldn't be a bad fit there. One name that I think is particularly interesting that I think could help Shaw is Tony Coxum, who I think got kind of a raw deal at Bluefield, and more importantly, I feel like when you're at the private schools, like they don't recruit just North Carolina. They recruit in a lot of different places, and his ties and what he was able to bring in at Bluefield that, arguably has a less desirable situation.
Arguably. Have you ever been to Bluefield?
I'm trying to be nice here. But I feel like, somebody like that's a pretty good recruiter, and who's gone into that same Atlanta market, who can recruit South Carolina and bring some guys in. I think that may be a good option if anybody at Shaw is watching. So, I just kind of wanted to throw some names in there because, I think that there is some pretty good options and out there, and why not? And Coach Rowe was another option out there too. So yeah.
Yeah, really excellent. Yeah, shout out to Coach Coxum. To be honest with you, well, I don't know if I really would want him to go there, but Mississippi Valley State would be a great. I think he's the type of guy with a can. Coach Coxum is a guy with a can-do type attitude, military guy. So maybe he can make some sense of that, but I don't know.
There's a lot of good options out there. I think there's a lot to consider. There's a lot out there that Shaw can, maybe infuse a little energy into the program and sort of keep things going, because right now it seems like everybody at Shaw is transferring to Elizabeth City except for Christian Peters, who went Division One. So
Where did Peters end up?
Pine Bluff.
Okay.
You know, just like Lincoln's quarterback Isaiah Freeman, he committed to Hampton. So
Saw that.
I mean, there's talent to CIAA, and it's just a matter of now retooling these rosters and getting them in the door. And you know, maybe some administrators need to be a little patient.
Kris, I feel you're impatient, but in one of those scenarios, now granted, your resources, that's a thing too. But one of those scenarios, the guy was in there for 8 years.
Yeah, maybe it just wasn't the right fit. I'm really curious to see what they do.
That's basically what I'm getting at. Yeah, you know, sometimes you just need a miracle worker. And that's what some places you just need a miracle worker. That's really all you're hoping for. Including our Division I brethren. So,
well, miracle worker these days is spelled NFL veteran.
Yeah, so exactly.
That's how you spell miracle worker these days. Whether it's Michael Vick, whether it's Deshaun Jackson, whether it's Sam Shade, whether it's Eddie George, let's go down the list. You know, those guys who've been toiling as assistants for many years and been maybe even coordinators and everything. Those opportunities are being eschewed, for sake of a better word, for guys with NFL experience. Because look, the bottom line is that players think if you've played in the NFL, particularly if you've excelled in the NFL, if you've done well in the NFL, if you made a name for yourself in the NFL, you know how to get there. You know the path to get there. That's what Deion sold everybody at Jackson State. You know, Eddie George.
The blueprint, he says.
Yeah, well, yeah, blueprint. And Eddie George has not done it loudly. His Heisman Trophy and his whatever 6,000-7,000 yard seasons probably speaks loudly for him. Everybody knows who Eddie George is. You win the Heisman Trophy, you have a stellar NFL career, even though he's not in the Hall of Fame. You know, Deion has obviously, with his outsized personality and profile, has vaulted himself into the stratosphere as it relates to that. But I say that Eddie George has done as good a job in his 3 years at Tennessee State as Deion did in his 3 years at Jackson State. He just did it a lot quieter, and he's attracting talent. He's attracting transfers. I think that's what everybody's looking for with Michael Vick. That's what everybody's looking for at Delaware State. They're looking for these NFL guys. And listen, you know, no sooner than Deshaun Jackson had been signed at Jackson State, you start seeing transfers. You start seeing, you know, sons of, I've forgotten the kid, but it's the son of an NFL
Antonio
player.
Gates.
Antonio Gates Jr. signed with him, and others that, so that's miracle worker these days is NFL head coaches. And look, Sam Shade, you know, the pattern is Sam Shade coached in high school, won a state championship in the States. From Alabama. He played at the University of Alabama, had an NFL career, you know, a relatively good NFL career. I mean, if you really follow the NFL, you would have been familiar with his resume, so to speak, as a player, you know. So, you know, at the same time, Sam Shade gets promoted from Miles to Alabama A&M in the sense of coming to Division I. A guy like Bubba McDowell, who had a similar kind of NFL career as Sam Shade, he gets let go. And he had Prairie View, arguably, in the top echelon, the top half of the SWAC, at least, in his couple of years plus at Prairie View A&M. So miracle workers, yeah, spelled NFL. And that's why I'm surprised to see Shaw or even Elizabeth City, for that matter, when you know the name Cris Carter was thrown around. That if Cris Carter is a Hall of Famer, I would say that probably young people know more about Deshaun Jackson than Cris Carter. He's a little older, but you know he wanted to get in. Of course, we've heard about Ray Lewis wanting to get in. We've heard about Marshall Faulk wanting to get in. I wouldn't be surprised before it's all said and done that we're going to have a stream of quote unquote high profile former NFL players who are going to be HBCU head coaches, you know, and the ones who have gone through that process of moving up through the ranks, like a Sean Gibbs, you know, like a Chinnis Berry, I think they're going to be few and far between. Everybody's going to be don't let Michael Vick win a championship at Norfolk State in the next couple of years. You're gonna see you're gonna see the Chris Carters and the Ray Lewises and the Marshall Falks of the world. I'm ready. Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
Well, already Tyreek Hill of the Dolphins.
I heard that. Right.
No sooner than Deshaun Jackson was announced, he said, "Yeah, have my HBCU job ready for me."
Get it ready. I'm coming. It's like, really?
Like that was his 401k,
It's a new day, man. It's a new day.
I'll always think about when that first day that you and I, like you said, we drove down to Jackson, and we drove back after the infamous who stole the wallet episode, and we talked about whether or not Dion, how quickly he could win, and we saw how quickly that ended up turning right after that spring season. And, like you said, ever since then, it's just kind of been.
Yeah. And the difference is Eddie George didn't come in saying, get me this year because, after this year, I'm going to have my people. Eddie George didn't make any of that noise. He just did.
He also doesn't have a 4-star son. I mean, his son plays and he's a good player, but that is the one other thing. Besides him being Deion Sanders, he also brought some Louis luggage with him, as he liked to say too. Right. And so Michael Vick doesn't have that. He does have a son, but I believe he's past the age of playing football. I don't think he was a football player. Not sure about Deshaun Jackson. So a lot there for sure. And we'll come back and talk about that in just a second. But I did kind of want to play a little bit of why Dr. Paul Bryant, who was the AD actually at Edward Waters when we played that game. And I know you and I talked to him it seems like so long ago. He's now the AD over at Alabama A&M, and he is the one who picked up Sam Shade. And so we'll hear what kind of stood out about him, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit after that. So,
evening, great Bulldog evening.
All right.
Really, our coach, and that was myself and the president. So I was able to read a lot, and I thought, and I truly appreciated that, because what that showed me was that there is a genuine interest in what we do here on the Hill, and knowing that we're changing the dynamics.
He's talking about people thinking that Ed Reed might have been in the running. Yes, I'm sorry, Red Eid. I'm sorry.
Of college athletics on the Hill. So after a thorough search, we had a committee. Our committee took a look at all the applicants, and there were a lot of people. And I want to say this: there were a lot of people suggested that never even applied or showed interest. And so I thought that was interesting as well. But once the committee vetted all the applicants, then they wanted to interview about 7 to 10 young men, and they did. And then they brought a recommendation for 3, and those 3 came on campus. And then we decided that the person that was best fit that we felt for Alabama A&M was the coach, and we chose him, and just consummated a deal late last night, actually. And one of the things that I want to say is this person,
such an eloquent way of saying
that won and he went on and played for the Cincinnati Bengals. Then he went on and played for the Cincinnati Bengals, played for the Redskins a little bit, but I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, so I do remember him. He worked for Samford, Georgia State, Cleveland Browns. He took Pinson Valley to the state championship, and then he took over at Miles, had a team that was 1-9, went 7-3 this year, 10-3, and lost to the eventual national NCAA Division II runner-up to Valdosta State. And our coach is none other than Coach Sam Shade.
Sam Shade.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So was able to really, people talk about the professional coaches, the coaches that have played professional, but have never had a coaching background. Not only do we have someone that has played at the highest level, won a national title at the NCAA level, also coached and have coached at several levels. And I was so excited to have him on campus and be able to speak to him. And then he's been in HBCU. That is important for us as we look at who we want to lead our program. Sam is at Miles and has done well at Miles. He took over a team that was depleted after the coach left and went to Tuskegee. He rebuilt that program and to a perennial champion. And so we're excited to have him here. The resources, the hold on in the state of Alabama is what sold us as well. He has vast resources that in the state of Alabama where he recruits all across the state, and he has connections everywhere. And then not only in the state, but all across the country. And so we know that he will do well. We know that he will recruit well, and we know that he will produce men from that football team. And so that's what's exciting for me, exciting for us. I'll tell you, if you know our president, Dr. Daniel.
All right, guys. So that is just a little bit of Dr. Paul Bryant, the athletic director of Alabama A&M, talking about why, when all the set was said and done, when all the smoke cleared, I believe he actually tweeted a video of. I believe he actually tweeted a video, Lou, of the Pope smoke coming out once their decision was made. You hear a lot of things. What sticks out to you about why Sam Shade was the guy? Again, you talk about his ties to Alabama, not only as a football player, but as a coach and everything else. It seems like a miracle worker to you, Lou?
Well, we in the media always speculate about who's going to replace who. And, when the job came open, when they let go of Connell Maynard, everybody turned to Sam Shade. What he did this year at Miles, not only going undefeated in the SIAC, but also winning a first-round game against a PWI. The Miles had never done that before. It was almost like a natural choice. I don't think everybody's attention turned towards Sam Shade as soon as the job came open. And like the AD just said, like Brian just said, he won a high school championship. He's been a coach for a while. People talk about Dion, that he had coached his son down in Texas. That from that standpoint, he had some. When the AD started looking for this, or the committee starts looking for that, they look for a combination. You've been in the HBCUs, you've been a head coach, you've coached. So this is not your first go round. Of course, I saw none of that with Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State. I didn't see anything about it. He had coached before, but again, I thought it was a natural. That's the name that immediately came to mind when Connell Maynard was let go. And look, everybody in the SWAC is trying to duplicate the turnaround at Jackson State. Before Dion got there, Jackson State hadn't won anything for a while. Alabama A&M under Connell won the COVID championship, I guess you could call it, with the spring season. But other than that,
made that trip to Jackson too.
Yeah, but other than that, Anthony Jones had a better run as the head coach of Alabama A&M. He won a championship and took them to the finals a couple of times, to the SWAC championship game before the Celebration Bowl came in. I think he might have been there I think he was gone before that. But Anthony Jones, why they let go of him back then, I don't know. Connell Maynard had not had a whole lot of success at Hampton. He definitely had success as your alma mater, Steve. And many people attributed that to the fact that Winston-Salem State had done a couple of years of recruiting Division I players that he actually inherited when he took the job, and propelled Winston-Salem State actually to the Division II championship game. So I was really, I know Connell well. I have a lot of respect for him, but I didn't think that when Fayetteville State was making those runs to the championship game, I wasn't impressed with the offensive schemes that Fayetteville State was running. They were very inept, I thought, offensively, kept them from winning I think they did win one. But anyway, the bottom line is I thought Shade was a natural fit. I think he'll do well because of those connections. Connell is a North Carolina guy. Went down into Alabama A&M, and for all practical purposes, he did well during those 8 years. Like I said, he won that one championship. He was maybe in the mix, probably more before Dion got there. In the post-Dion era, they've been behind since FAMU's joined the conference. They've been behind.
Yeah, last change is
Yeah, they've been third or fourth, really behind Alabama State. So I think it's a good hire for them. I think it's an excellent hire for them. I think Shade will do well. I don't think it'll take him long. I think the competition in the SWAC just got more intense with him coming to Alabama A&M. I think you're going to the degree that they may have been. I think the pecking order may have been, Jackson State, FAMU, Alabama State, maybe Prairie View out of the with the SWAC West. Fred McNair certainly had Alcorn in the mix. Now they've been switched from the east to the west. Somebody's got to hire Fred McNair. I wonder, will he go to Mississippi Valley and basically have to resurrect that program, because he actually did an excellent job at Alcorn State when he took over from Jay Hobson and moved up to Southern Miss. He did an excellent job. I thought Hobson put him there, but Fred McNair would tell you that he don't give Hobson a whole lot of credit. He says we were headed there before he got there. To bring that white coach into the SWAC was a big deal, really, in the SWAC. So I think Fred McNair is a guy I would think, even though Valley has I think most people would say has a long way to get into contention. I think a guy like Fred McNair would do well at, and when I talked to him at the Celebration Bowl, he told me he was applying for all of those jobs in the SWAC, and implied that he was even applying for those outside the SWAC in terms of the HBCU world. So
Sean's open. How do you feel about North Carolina? He's played for Carolina Cobras. I'm just saying.
I don't know if he's willing to. I didn't get that impression that he's willing to go to the SIAC or to the CIAA. I got the impression that he'd like to stay on at least the FCS level. But I did ask him at the Hall of Fame, SWAC Hall of Fame event down in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Celebration Bowl, as we kind of get ready to put a bow on these things, Celebration Bowl wasn't that long ago. It hadn't even been a whole month, 3 weeks, and a lot has changed since then. The news broke on today officially, but it's been out there for a while, and it really been ruminating since the Celebration Bowl, that South Carolina State, fresh off the MEAC title, fresh off the second Celebration Bowl appearance in 4 years, they are now parting ways with their athletic director, Nathan Cochran, after literally, this is 1 year to the day that he started his to be the AD at his alma mater. The interim AD, you may have heard of him, Buddy Pough. Some people call him Buddy. Thorn in the side of many a coach. But he is the interim AD now for the second time, a little over a year. Folks may remember or may not remember he actually was the interim AD when Chennis Berry was hired, and during that same time, he actually was the the interim AD when Nathan Cochran was hired as the AD. So big news that happened today, and the official word from South Carolina State University is that Dr. Cochran left to pursue other opportunities. That's the official word.
Famous last words.
You know, I'm going to play a little clip of an interview that I had on Halloween night. I never released this before. On Halloween night, I interviewed Dr. Nathan Cochran. That was the night that they beat North Carolina Central and really took hold of the MEAC race. And you know, we'll see what we think.
Okay, Eddie Cochran.
Let's get this.
We've had two dynamic coaches here between Coach Jeff. About working with him, obviously. And we also brought 300 of our faculty and staff with a cookout today in Orangeburg School District. And we also brought 390 students from Orangeburg School District to the game.
So right now he's talking about how they
it was a great opportunity.
Got a solid crowd on Thursday night right after Halloween.
Open up our campus, open up South Carolina State University, and really involve them in Bulldog athletics. No doubt about it. Now, it's just been a little bit less than a year since you got here, as well as Coach Berry. Talk about working with him. Obviously, he's a dynamic coach, and what he's done previously precedes himself. And then obviously, South Carolina State has its history as well. Yeah. Just talk about what you guys have done to, kind of make this come together so quickly. Well, Coach Berry's done a tremendous job. He's come in and really put his own stamp on this program. We've had two dynamic coaches here between Coach Jeffries and Coach Pough, who led this program, and Coach Berry stepped right on in the line. He knows exactly what he wanted to do with this program. He has put his stamp on this program, and you can see the results, and that's why we're 5-2 at this point. And so that has been a great opportunity to work with him and to see him and work with his vision for what he wanted to do with Bulldog football. And so for me, it's the same kind of process. For me, I'm trying to build up our Bulldog athletics. When we came in, there were some deficiencies, and those are the things that we were steady cleaning up. Some of my predecessors had already started cleaning up, so I can't take all the credit. But some of the things that we're doing is trying to improve our facilities, raise money, and trying to generate better experiences for our student athletes here on campus. Yeah, and as we get into the end of the football season, still got a way to go. Hey, you guys might be playing well into I'm already making my reservations. Martin is doing a great job building that program up. Hopefully, we can damper on the end of our season. To travel with the men to Puerto Rico and got a chance to see them play. We've got some great dynamic new players. Coach Martin is doing a great job building that program up. Hopefully, we can build on the 14 wins we had last year and go further into the tournament. Our women's team is building as well. We've got some great new pieces in the program. And Coach Eatman has done a great job recruiting this year. So hopefully they'll be able to make an impact and we won't get hit with the injury bug like we did last year. That really put a damper on the end of our season for the women. So we're really excited to see what's happening there. Track and field is building. Softball is building. We're really excited about our sports here. And I'm very happy to be back home as the athletic director of South Carolina.
Well, that didn't last long. It's interesting when you know the back, when you're in the media and you kind of know the backstory. He put up a good front, but the bottom line is that there was real conflict between Coach Berry and Athletic Director Cochran. Very much a conflict. I got a text. Trying to remember if it was before the Celebration Bowl or after. It said that one of them had to go. Either Berry was leaving or Cochran was leaving. So I guess you see what choice they made. I got a text that said that, and it was from a very reliable source, and. At the time, it was not even a question. It was a done deal at that time, but it was not going to be officially released for some time until they went through whatever process they went through. And I didn't even see it today. with running around celebrating my new great grandson, I didn't get a chance to really get on the wire and see what was happening. But I was told that it was really a done deal almost right after the Celebration Bowl, So, but he talked, and look, a lot of our programs, a lot of the HBCU programs can be skewed, if you will, towards one sport. And I would not be surprised if you heard him talking about all of these different sports. The ones that are more successful are the ones that they're going to get, it's like what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil or the grease, So you want to continue South Carolina State's progress? Of course you do. You want to continue winning MEAC championships in football? If you got a coach that can do that, of course you do. You're not about to move away from that coach. And especially when the AD didn't hire him, so.
Well, I mean, we just talked about the Alabama A&M job, and it was kind of out there that Coach Berry his name was how shall we say, in the hat for that. So South Carolina State, they have that. I know, Luke, you're a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Y'all have only had, what,
three
coaches. Three coaches my entire life.
Right.
So it's they kind of got that going on in the HBCU world, but clearly it's a new day. And now whether that was just for leverage or whether that was serious, I think we see for sure. Like you said, I mean, you could be the greatest AD in the world, but it's tough to compete with a championship winning football coach in his first season, especially when it's charismatic as when Chin is Berry. So yeah, it's just interesting. They always have that saying, you can't go home again, or can you go home again? Work for Bobby Brown sometimes, but unfortunately, it didn't work for Dr. Cochran. And I wish him well. I know he was in even during the Celebration Bowl, he was speaking with some folks at a career event, and he was talking about how in a previous position he had thought about getting out of sports, and he got the call from the president to come home and be the AD, and it was kind of a dream come true. But sometimes a dream best to stay a dream.
Be a nightmare.
Right, I was gonna say that turn into a nightmare.
It was Halloween when I was interviewing him, so yeah, again, and let's be real, let's be honest, because I know a lot of people, including myself, have given grief to a school that wears orange and green about constant turnover at the athletic director position. As Kris says, but South Carolina State, I mean, they're not far behind, Luke.
They've been through a few. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bryant was, before he went to Alabama A&M, that's where he was. So, one thing we have to do, like you all were talking about Coach Parker up at Virginia Union, do we know that he applied for these positions that people were throwing his name around? Does Buddy Pough really want to be the athletics director? Is he intend to stay as the athletics director, or is this just temporary? These are questions, obviously, that we have to ask them. Particularly, we have to ask Coach Parker, did he apply to Norfolk State, or did he apply to, and they don't have to apply. Teams, programs can come after you and ask you to put your name in. I don't know that I was skeptical that he wanted to leave Virginia Union, and I don't have any problem asking him, if given the opportunity, is that something that he was looking to move? Because I know he's very I would say I can say very, but I'm not sure. But I think he's relatively comfortable in the position he is at Virginia Union. He's actually filling two roles, not only as the football coach, but as Virginia Union kind of switches the names around. I don't think he has the title of athletic director. But
they'll
anyway,
make up a title. They'll make up a title for you in a second. Over
yeah,
there.
exactly.
Those private schools,
And they get the two salaries or some portion of the two salaries that are related to those jobs. So I don't know that he really applied to Dell State or to Norfolk State or even inquired about these other positions. Like, I don't know whether the word that I had gotten was that Buddy Pough was going to be the permanent athletics director, not interim. But when he moved off the sidelines, Buddy, I think he wouldn't have problems holding the job down temporarily, but whether he wants the job on a permanent basis, I'd have to ask him. He's been around that program for the last 40 years. He might be ready to. He might be just taking it up to have somebody that's to agree some degree of continuity, and certainly somebody that's not beefing with the football coach because he brought him in. So those things are interesting. I actually, while you're playing the interview, I was trying to see who were the other finalists at Alabama A&M. Have you heard anything about who those three finalists that Brian brought in, other than Sam Shade?
I haven't heard anything definite. Again, they, I did hear. I have heard Dr. Parker. I don't know that for sure that he was a finalist, but I had heard he was in the mix, and Shennis Berry's name has kept popping up. But
I think McNair got an interview. I think I did see that they interviewed Fred.
What about Tremaine? I thought Tremaine was in the running for that job too.
Oh, really?
That they were interested in him.
Mm.
Yeah,
were you surprised? Well, let me ask Kris. Were you surprised that he bolted Valdosta State so far? I know last time we were on, you told me you're actually going to Valdosta State, so you probably know a whole lot more about that, very well-known Division II program. I think you told us last time that he had actually agreed to the deal before the championship game. Were you surprised that he left as kind of quickly as he did? I don't know what Valdosta State's budget is, how much he was being paid. You think it was he wanted to just get back to the HBCU level, or was it a money deal? What do you think?
Well, there's several factors. I mean, it is a homecoming for him. He's from the Houston area, so there's that.
Okay.
He gets that jump from Division II to Division I. You pretty much double your money. I mean, I remember when Maynard left and went to Hampton, he increased his salary by like $90,000. And so, I imagine that it's probably a similar sum, and you don't have to pay state income tax on top of that. Valdosta is not the school that has an abundance of resources like some of their peers at the Division II level. And I think that was certainly an issue in that particular realm too, that, just trying to get resources and things like that was just a bit of a struggle.
Have they replaced Jackson?
Not on a permanent basis, no.
Okay.
No, I think they got some soul searching to do right now, just like some of the other schools at the Division II level. And you're seeing at Division II, you are seeing some homecomings, like Northwest Missouri. They got a coach that used to play quarterback there, come there, but he had to prove himself at another program before he moved over. So, Valdosta had been kind of doing that the last couple of coaches, that they had proven themselves at other programs, and then as a head coach, and then they went to Valdosta. So, I expect something similar to that, kind of like what we were talking about with Miles. I'm kind of expecting somebody who has had success to come in at that program too. I mean, when you get that Division I call, it's hard to ignore that when it's a decent program, and that's why, like, Coach Parker as a potential option to go to like Dell State, I'm like, Yeah, the salary might be there, but is that kind of a dead end? Like I'm not.
I had heard the salary really wasn't there, but man, I guess maybe it was there for Deshaun Jackson. I don't know.
Well, no, I think when you have a situation where you already have major money, right, you can afford to take those risks. And as opposed to you're grinding it out as an assistant, become a head coach. I mean, Dr. Parker will be better off just sitting still and seeing what comes open, another time or two, because he's got a pretty good deal right now, in my opinion.
We had a debate going back to what Steve talked about earlier about we debated a lot in terms of what Deion Sanders going to Jackson State meant. We had all kinds of ideas. What if he didn't win in his first couple of years? How long would he stay? We didn't know how good Shedeur was. At the time, Shedeur was signed to go play down in Florida for one of the numerous Florida schools that's not Florida State, Miami, or Florida. Yeah, he was going. He was going to Florida Atlantic. Now, when is the last time you've seen a Florida Atlantic quarterback get drafted? Now, talking about the number one draft pick in the country, I don't think if he had gone to Florida Atlantic, he would have been what he was playing for his daddy for the last 4 years. But anyway, we were debating. Was Deion taking this job at Jackson for $300,000 because he needed the money? And we had that debate, really.
Yeah, we did.
Again, we did. We had that debate. Because there were stories saying that he had squandered a significant amount of his money, and that a $300,000 paycheck would be needed, for sake of a better term, as opposed to coaching at a high school level. So people taking these jobs or moving, like you're talking about, it's usually a double your money. I do remember Connell Maynard, Bill Hayes had upped his salary at Winston-Salem State to probably be the top one in the CIAA in an effort to try to keep him. And at that time, he was considered for A&T and some other positions that had come open before he took the Hampton job. So, the life
he
of
might. I found out recently he might have been the head coach at North Carolina Central had they been quicker to find the money.
Well, they had to find.
Then how would history be changed if they with Kyle Maynard?
They had to find extra money for Rod Broadway to bring him to A&T. Rod Broadway had turned the job down because it was not significantly more than he was making at Grambling. There were some other issues for which he was ready to really get out of Grambling. My phone is ringing. My son is calling me. So, but they had to find him. He had turned the job down at A&T until Earl Hilton sweetened the pot some, and his salary was $300,000 plus. He was around $280 at Grambling, and it was $300,000. And one of the requirements of his contract, I came to understand, was that he had to be either first or second salary wise in the MEAC while he was at North Carolina A&T. So I was just interested in Jackson. I would assume that it was an upgrade, but I didn't know what Valdosta's financial status was, how much they were paying him. So what you're telling me, he was making less than $150 at Valdosta State.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And he was living in Valdosta. Whew. All right. But another Marco places I can't go. Well, look, guys, I appreciate it. Kris said he'll give us 30 minutes. He's been on here a whole hour. And Luke's got his son calling him and getting updates on the baby and everything like that. So we're gonna go ahead and land this plane. But I do want to say I appreciate you gentlemen for coming on, giving us some of your time, some of your candor. I appreciate everybody that hopped in and tuned on. And we still got a couple more hires to go. Who knows what will happen? Who knows what will happen in the next week? But stay tuned to HBCU Game Day. Go to hbcugameday.com every day. And please, before you get off, please make sure you like the stream as well. And appreciate you guys for tuning in. And we will see everybody on the flip side. Peace.